Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, warmly invite you to the third session of the world's first virtual implant expo. My name is Ruben, and on behalf of Team Dentist Channel Online, I would like to invite each and every one of you and thank you for attending and making sure that you are making the best out of this implant expo. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have a very special speaker from Mumbai, India. The speaker has been known as the master of subperiosteal implants, as well as the man who you should look out for when it comes to customized implants. We've always had the opportunity to been associated with Dr. Abdul Hamid from quite some time. Dr. Abdul Hamid has been doing a wonderful job in the field of implant dentistry, and that is the reason why he's here live in front of you, so that he enlightens you with all that he has to offer. Thank you, Dr. Abdul, for joining us for this session. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you all would be knowing Dr. Abdul, but a quick introduction is what I would love to do. So here goes. Dr. Abdul Hamid, after having acquired his postgraduate qualification from the prestigious KLE Institute of Dental Sciences, Bangalore, has worked with an oncosurgeon, plastic cosmetic surgeons, neurosurgeons, and orthopedic surgeons in Bangalore and Mumbai, India. Besides his academic qualifications, he has extensive training in diverse areas of maxillofacial surgery, such as trauma surgery, TM joint surgery, orthognathic surgery, onco-rehabilitative surgeries, facial plastic surgeries, and dental implants. After further training in various leading centers across India and abroad, he started his private practice in Mumbai. He has keen interest in 3D printing technology, which you will be seeing very shortly from now, and utilizes this technology for precise, accurate, and successful surgeries. He is the recipient of several awards and has several publications in national and international journals. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you Dr. Abdul Hamid live.
Thank you, Ruben, for giving such a warm introduction, and welcome you all on this first virtual implant conference. Thanks to Dentist Online channel for giving me this opportunity to share this unique technology to the audience, and it is indeed one of the new innovations in the field of dentistry. Though it is not a new technology, but the return of subperiosteal implant is definitely new because we have changed a lot of concepts of the subperiosteal implant as compared to that of the conventional or classical subperiosteal implant. As we all know, implant has indispensable treatment modalities now in the clinical practice to replace the missing tooth and the structures of the maxillofacial region, not only the dental but also the various part of the maxillofacial regions like the eyes, the mandible after dissection of a mandible and the maxillectomy. But today's session, we are going to talk more about the customized implant, the subperiosteal implant, and the customized titanium mesh for the GBR, that is a guided bone regeneration. So there are a lot of people who comes to you with severely resorbed mandible, but definitely there are a lot of options are available today's scenario, which we will be discussing in the next few slides. But there are certain conditions where patient doesn't have any options left behind, and we send them back without doing anything. But with this new technology and innovations, we have some hope for those patients who we cannot do with the help of a conventional dental implants. So this is Dr. Abdul Hamid. Greetings from Mumbai. Just 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
So you can use the arrow keys in the keyboard.
1 second. Yeah. So myself, Dr. Abdul Hamid, a consultant maxillofacial surgeon, and today we are going to speak about patient-specific customized solution for the resorbed mandibles and maxilla. That is for the reconstruction of dental rehabilitation. So since ancient period, if you see any civilization, they have always tried to save their tooth, or they have replaced that missing tooth with the help of a stone, metal, and ivory. They have carved it and they have replaced the missing or lost tooth structures. Also, they have tried to replace the same tooth by fixing it with the gold type wires or the gold strips. But in 1700, there was the first John Lister who tried to implant the tooth, which has rejected later on. But with the advances in 1941, the first surgeon, that is a Gustav Dahl, who has tried to put a customized that is called a subperiosteal implant, but later on, because of some issues, it got failed. This was the first time where the person has tried to do something which is a metal on a surface of a bone, or that is a jaw. But it has been published several articles by the time 1966. But there are a lot of problems with such kind of a subperiosteal implant, which has been discussed, and later on it has been out of the practice. That is because of a lot of reasons which has been seen with the help with the subperiosteal implant. Those reasons are those they have poor fit because the impression was taken on the periosteum, and the material which is used, that is a vanadium and chrome cobalt, which has got a stress seal, and they have seen that they have fractured or bone resorption been induced because of the lot of plaque or microorganism deposited on the surfaces because of the rough surface. Mobility of the implant because of the severe resorption later on the fixation of these implants, bone exposure, necrosis and atrophy, chronic infection, and implant exposure and tissue recession. These are the reason where these implants have lost their reputation, and finally they have been discontinued because of this reason. Later on, because of the osseointegration concept which has been put forwarded by Brennemark, the endosteal implant has been come into the picture, which has been widely accepted and has been used till date for the conventional dental rehabilitation. Endosseous dental implants provide highly predictable solution for the prosthetic rehabilitation, both for partially and totally edentulous jaws. But for these cases of these implants, we need a good amount of bone that in the quantity as well as the quality of the bone is very much important for the osseointegrations. A lot of articles has been published for about the osseointegrations, the practice affecting the osseointegrations, the bone quality, preparation of the implant sites, and the type of the material and the surface structures of the implant. But very less concept has been introduced or read or what to say that scientifically written that how it is going to affect the osseointegration at the implant site preparation or the compromised bone conditions. So there are a lot of conditions where the alveolar ridge or a dental alveolar ridge or a bone gets resolved because of the various age, and only the basal bone is left behind, and it is very difficult for those patients to replace it with the conventional dental implants. So this is Coward and Howell who has put forward the classification of resorbed jaw, that is class 1 to class 6. Class 1 to 3, definitely we have a good amount of bone in both width as well as the buccolingual diameters. So it is very easy and straightforward cases to put forward to do a conventional endosseous implant. But with the classes like 4, 5, and 6, it becomes a little difficult for a surgeon with 4, where we have to do some sort of augmentation to get a height as well as the width of the bone to introduce a conventional endosseous implant. But with the 5 and 6, we have to do a lot of invasive surgical procedures to increase the height, which we'll be discussing in the next few slides, and then we can put or place a conventional endosseous implants. So what happens, why this bone resolves? Because of there are certain reasons for that ill-fitting dentures in the both arches, or it may be in the maxilla because of the sinus pneumatization, or because of the advanced age, there is a poor bone quality or a osteoporotic bone that has lead to this kind of a situation. But these cases we can treat with various treatment modalities. Either we can augment this resorbed bones, or we can utilize the remaining bone, and we can go ahead to do some sort of a dental implants. So what are these options available? If in case it's the maxilla, if you want to do augmentation, we can do a sinus floor, that is a sinus lift procedure to introduce an endo-osseous implant, or we can have only bone grafting. And in severe cases, we can do a Lee-Ford-1 osteotomy and downward positioning of the maxilla with bone graft that can increase the vertical height as well as the width of the implant can be added along with the bone grafts. So we can do these procedures to augment the maxillary arch. If you don't want to do such kind of an augmentation, we can go ahead and do with the short implants, which is again possible to do some till some extent we can do with this kind of a short implants and do a dental rehabilitation. Tuberosity implants, there are again tilt implants concepts, steady-bite implants, all on 4 or all on 6, and finally we can do a zygoma implants. They all can be done with the help of the whatever the amount of bone is left behind. In case of mandible rehabilitation, we can go ahead further by augmenting that area with the bone grafting or distraction osteogenesis. If you don't want to go for augmentation, then definitely we can go ahead with the short implants, and also we can do a nerve repositioning, nerve lateralization, and the implants can be placed in that area, or we can do all on 4 concept and we can go ahead and do a dental rehabilitation. But all these cases need some amount of bone, yes, of course, but there are certain limitations for all these technologies or techniques for the dental rehabilitation with a series of advantages and disadvantages, and that we have to weigh before we go ahead and do this kind of a dental procedures for the dental rehabilitation. Can we do something for those patients where we can't do such kind of things? Definitely we can go ahead and do it. This is what we can do. This is definitely we can utilize the same bone and we can go ahead and do the short implant. These are the short implants, Bicon implants, which has been used for the vertical height is very less, where we can place a small implants and we can go ahead with the dental rehabilitation. Or else we can go ahead and do the all on 4, all on 6 concept and rehabilitation for those resolved cases in the maxilla and mandible. Further, we can use the tilted implant concept, which is new concept. There's a tilt implant concept. We can go ahead and do the dental rehabilitation, or a cord zygoma with severe resorption, which is 4 zygomatic implants has been placed, which is encouraged on the zygomatic, and we can go ahead and do the dental rehabilitation. They all have their own advantages and disadvantages. And now there is one more option is available, that is a basal implants. I'm not a basal implants expert, but definitely there is. But this is one more option. They have a lot of articles which shows a lot of complications and side effects with these basal implants. Further, but if you are qualified and you have a skill, we can go ahead and do this kind of a dental rehabilitation for those patients where there is no other options are available. But if you want to augment, definitely we have to do a bone grafting or a block bone grafting for the both maxilla and mandible. There are certain conditions where we need to stabilize this bone graft with the help of either a mesh or a tissue membrane or a membrane. Definitely the membrane which is soft in nature and does not give a stability to the grafted part, and there may be chances that the graft may get resolved. So titanium mesh is widely used, that has a good rigidity to hold the graft in anatomical position, as well as it allows the stability to graft, and it prevents it from the resorption. So that's the most commonly used for the block bone graft. Or this is one of my case where we use a non-individualized, that is a ready-made or a pre-formed titanium mesh. But the problem with these meshes is that it needs a manual cutting to adjust the particular areas. Bending and trimming take a lot of time, and it has got a lot of sharp edges. It may get exposed by cutting through the soft tissues, and it may. And second problem is that it will not have a good anatomical position. We have to adapt it as per our skill to get a proper vertical as well as the buccolingual dimension. So how to avoid this kind of problems of prefabricated or preformed meshes? It can be corrected with the help of individualized regenerative meshes, that is customized which is more accurate, more precise, and very rigid, as well as the biocompatible. So we don't require any kind of further tissue, further membrane to add up for the reconstruction in the defect areas. So this is how it has been designed, and it has been grafted that area below the titanium mesh, and it will give you a good stable 3D format of a bone regeneration, which is ideally customized with the help of a CVCT, and it has been printed with the help of a 3D printing technology. So these are few of the cases where we have a defect in the premolar molar areas, which has been designed and it has been fabricated. Implant is placed in that area. Grafting has been done, and on that grafting, a customized titanium mesh is placed, and which has been left for around 5 to 6 months. Later on, it has been removed, and a prosthetic has been done. So the advantage of this kind of a customized titanium mesh is a more stable, and the desired anatomical shape can be obtained, which is not possible with a prefabricated or a pre-formed titanium meshes. It is very difficult with those pre-formed or a non-individualized meshes. And apart from that, if you see in the anterior region, there are a lot of time we need to do a lot of bone grafting. Once we do a bone grafting, it is difficult to do a prosthesis in the anterior region. If you give a prosthesis in the anterior region, there is chances of a resorption of the bone graft. So if you have a customized titanium mesh, we can add up spurs or a screw like of structures, that is a studs, on which if you see these are 3 purple studs, which can be used to give a provisional prosthesis for initially after the bone grafting and titanium mesh. Also, the same titanium mesh can be used as a guide in future for the implant placement. So if you see this last picture, which is a titanium mesh, which has got a holding screw pins as a holding screw holes for the fixation of a titanium. And on the upper part, there is a hole that is kind of a guide for the future implant placement. So you don't require any other guide for the implant placement once the bone regeneration happens in that particular area. So, but these all conditions where we need a bone grafting, it is where there is some amount of bone is left. But in condition where there is an extremely clinical conditions where the large amount of bone is resolved and maybe only the basal bone is left, these are the certain cases where you can't do even a conventional block bone grafting or any kind of a graft will not work. So we need to do something which is more precise and more perfect fitting dental implants for such patients. So what is the options for these kind of patients? So for this kind of a patient, the options available is a subperiosteal implant, which is a framework made up of titanium, which is placed on the surface of the bone with the help of a cortically fixed titanium screws, and it has got a multiple studs or abutment kind of a structures. In recent technology, we have incorporated a multi-unit abutment base to the framework with which on which we can do a root screw retain prosthesis for these patients. So indications, any severely resolved cases can be utilized for the fabrication of subperiosteal implant. If you don't want to do sinus lift for the patients who have a severe sinus pathologies, fears because of multiple surgeries, and the patient doesn't want to go for a multiple surgeries for bone grafting. Also, the donor site surgeries for the block bone graft from like iliac crust grafting or a rib graft or a calcareal graft. So there's a patient who doesn't want to go for another second surgeries for in any other part of the body. Financial and time constraint. Definitely, grafting takes a lot of time, and it is a multiple surgery, and you need other associate surgeons for the for removal or harvesting the graftings. So why we want this subperiosteal implant in this age of 2020? Definitely because the changes now, the patients coming to the dental clinics, they are highly demanding for dental rehabilitation. They want to get it replace their teeth with the help of dental implants. And definitely in this modern dentistry or modern age of medical science, we can't say no, we don't have any other options to go ahead and do the dental rehabilitation. So that's the reason we are again back to the subperiosteal implant, but with lot of changes, and these changes are that it utilizes a CAD CAM when we compare with the classical subperiosteal implant, where we used to take a impression on the mucosa directly from the oral cavity. But here we don't do any kind of an impression, but we utilizes a CAD CAM technology on which we utilizes the CT scans of the patient, and on that CT scan we virtually plan the subperiosteal implants. And we use grade 5 titanium, which has a good steel strength as well as good osseointegration properties, and hybrid surfaces for the inner surface of the implant that is facing towards the bone. We treat it with the sandblasting and etching, and it allows for the osseointegration, which when it comes in contact with the bone. The outer surface, that is the external surface, is highly polished, and it doesn't allow the microorganism to grow, and it doesn't allow the soft tissue to recede. And the processes that we have planned with this new technology is the screw retain processes. Definitely, it is going to be one additional advantage over the subperiosteal implant. Let's see what are the parts of subperiosteal implants here with this new technology. This is a connecting or a cortical plate through which we fix the implant on the bone. And we have a palatal connecting plate, that is again for the fixation of subperiosteal implant. We have one endosteal part of the implant which goes within the bone. That is the one more new addition to this classical subperiosteal implant. That's why we call it as an endosubperiosteal implant. Some part of the implant is on the subperiosteal, and some part of the implant is the endosteal. This endosteal part has got a component called a multi-unit base, which is incorporated within the implant, which will be transmucosal, and through this submucosal base we utilizes for the fabrication of a prosthesis. So there is some protocol for the fixation of this subperiosteal implant. What kind of where we fix it on the maxilla or mandible? There is a certain concept what we have utilized, which is commonly used in the maxillofacial surgeries, that is Chamfy's line in the mandible for the fixation of a fractured plates. So the same concept has been used to fabricate the subperiosteal implant in the mandible. If you see the Chamfy's line, this is the black line, which is the most important line in the fracture fixation. The same concept has been used to fabricate the subperiosteal implant. That is the most stress-bearing areas of the mandible that is used to fix the mandible. The same subperiosteal concept has been used to fix the cortical plates of the subperiosteal implant. Similarly, the most stable part in the maxilla or a midface is the buttresses of the maxillofacial region, that is the midface, that is the anterior buttress and the middle buttress and the posterior buttress. These buttresses, the zygomatic buttress and the canine buttresses, have been used to fix the subperiosteal implant. This is the anterior buttress used to fix the cortical plates of the subperiosteal implant. This is the posterior buttress used to fix the cortical part of the subperiosteal implant. This is how it has been designed and is fixed. The one more advantage of this fixation, if you see, we can avoid screws. We can avoid the screw fixation in the sinus area. So usually in zygomatic zygoma implants and tilt implants, sometimes we pass through the sinus and we fix this zygoma implant within the zygomatic bone. But later on we see there are a lot of patients come to us with the sinusitis, which is a chronic sinusitis, and sometimes they have a serious problem and we have to treat the sinus. But in this case, we are avoiding the screws, the fixation of the screws in the areas of sinus. We are keeping our fixation screws too far away from the sinuses, and it is on the buttresses. And also the dimension of the screws also can be measured, and accordingly we can use it for the fixation. This is how the virtual planning of the subperiosteal implant in the maxilla. This is how it looks. This is the post fabrication. Let us see few of the cases how we have treated the subperiosteal implants. This is the maxillary subperiosteal implant immediately after the fabrication. That is how it looks. The subperiosteal incision, the mucofacial flap is laid up to the zygomatic buttress and the anterior buttress. This is how it has been fixed. And once it has been fixed, there is an external bar or a multi-unit abutment base. We can use either the bar for the hybrid processes, or you can use some multi-unit abutments for the final processes. This is one more case where there is a patient with a zygoma. The zygoma has failed. The patient came to us for the rehabilitation of a dental prosthesis. The zygomatic bone in one, the anterior zygomatic, the tilt implant has been removed, and we have planned for this patient a subpecial implant. This is how it has been fabricated and kept. This is placed immediately after the placement. It looks like this. This is the multi-unit abutment base, and this is the denture through which the screw-ridden prosthesis has been fabricated and fixed to the multi-unit abutment. So it's very straightforward, but it gives a very predictable and precise outcome for the patient who have a severely resolved cases. This is a surgery. Mucopalatal flap on the palatal side has been raised, and this is a guide for the creation of a subperiosteal part. Sorry. This is a guide for the subperiosteal or endosteal part the creation of a trough for the endosteal part of the subperiosteal implant, which is again very precise. This is how the implant is taken inside the oral cavity and fixed on the buttresses in the maxilla. Once it has been stabilized, it is fixed with the cortical screws. This is a zygomatic buttress. A screw is being used to fix, that is cortical screws. Again, these screws also has been customized depending upon the site wear, and the dimension as well as the length of the screw has been adjusted as per the need. On the right side of the maxilla, this is how it has been fixed. There is no much what do you say, the preparation of a bone is needed in the subperiosteal implant. Only 4 troughs has been created for the endosteal part of the subperiosteal implant. This is the trough which has been created, in which the endosteal part of the implant has been synced inside. The advantage of this endosteal part is that the soft tissue coverage and the emergence profile is there for the multi-unit abutment base. This is the palatal fixation of the subperiosteal implant. The multi-unit abutment screws or base has been put on the multi-unit base, transmucosal structure of the multi-unit abutment, and finally we suture it. These are the maxillary, one more case. The severely resolved maxilla. This is how it has been seen. The surgical pictures. Mucopalatal flap is raised. The implant is fixed with the help of a cortical plates. If you see again here, the 4 points where the endosteal part is there with the multi-unit abutment base. And finally, suture. We can immediately restore these patients with the provisional prosthesis, and later on we can go ahead and do a hybrid denture for these patients. This is how the mandibular case subperiosteal implant looks like. This concept of Chamfy's line is used to fabricate the cortical plate for the fixation of subperiosteal implant. Is that again we have 4 connectors that is used to fix a multi-unit abutment basis for the subperiosteal implant. These are the few cases. Virtual planning, this is how it looks immediately after X-ray and post fixation X-rays. This is how it has been fixed on the mandible. This is a suprastructural bar with a multi-unit abutment base. There are a lot of options for the prosthetic components, which we can use it for the fixation of prosthesis. This is one more case where we have right and left side of a superficial implant fixed with the cortical base in the anterior as well as the posterior region. This is again, if you see, there is a trough created for the endosteal part of the implant. This is a multi-unit abutment base on which we can put a transmucosal connectors and on which we can do a dental or a prosthetic rehabilitation. These are the bar for the fixation of a hybrid dentures. This is how it looks in the post-operative X-rays. This is the bar on which denture has been fixed or a transmucosal component can be used for the dental rehabilitation. Similarly, partial edentulous area can be treated with the help of a superficial implant. A small superficial implant has been designed and fabricated with the help of a CBCT and 3D printing technology. Again, if you see, there is a fixation cortical plate, and this is connector, and there is one more endosteal part which is inside the trough of created within the bone. This is the multi-unit abutment base on which dental prosthesis or transmucosal attachment has been placed, and the dental rehabilitation can be done for these cases. More precise and accurate for this. What are the advantages of these patients? Less invasive surgical procedures, since it avoids the complex bone augmentation procedures. It adapts to the existing anatomy, that is the perfect anatomy what is there. We don't have to change any kind of anatomical structures of the maxillofacial region, that is mandible and maxilla. Single surgery is needed. We don't require any kind of a second or third stage surgery for the removal of a graft or harvesting of the graft. Allow immediate loading, though I don't recommend immediate loading. Let initial provisionalization can be done for a few days. After the few days of implant fixation, later on we can do a provisional, and after a few months we can do a permanent dental rehabilitation for those patients. Less psychological impact on the patient. Definitely, if you are not doing multiple surgeries for those patients who has been advised that we can go ahead and do a lot of harvesting from different part of the body, definitely the patient has got some psychological impact. But with this kind of a technology where you don't require any kind of a second surgery, then definitely there is a less psychological impact on the patient. And the most important thing is that we don't require multiple visit of the patient also to your clinic. Once the patient comes to your clinic, you have to just advise them a CBCT, take one impression, send it to the company wherever you have an options to fabricate your superficial implant. They will do everything for you, right from the designing to the fabrication. You just have to be there with them on a on the phone to help them what you require, what is your expectation for the patients. So that means there is no patient direct involvement for the regular visits in terms of designing, planning, or any other things. Whereas in regular things, we have to call the patients, we have to do grafting, then we have to call up the patient, follow up the patient for suturing. A lot of things are there. We have to follow how it is happening, what is happening with the graft, recurrent X-rays, and all those things. And later, finally, till we finish the final processes. Favor stabilization and osseointegration of the structures. With this new technology, the inner surface of the superficial implant, that is the bone contact surface of the superficial implants, has been treated, which was not classically done in the old concept of a superficial implant. But now we are treating the inner surface of the superficial implant, that is sandblasting, acid etching, and we are making it more the rough and surface areas to induce osseointegration in that area. In one of our this superficial implant, the surgeon from Portugal who has done a few cases a few years back, and he tried to remove one of his implant. As per the research, he found that there is a lot of difficulty while removing this superficial implant, which has been treated on the inner surface of the superficial implant. So with that research, it has been seen that the surface of the superficial implant, which is treated on the inner surface, has a tendency to get osseointegrated. What are the different disadvantages of this technology? Definitely, all the technologies, all the medical science has their own advantages and disadvantages. It is a complex design protocol. That means it is not the cup of tea for every surgeon or everybody who is not implantologists, but definitely special training for designing of such implant is needed, and we need to be have a skillful for software which has been used to design this customized implants. Needs surgical skill. Definitely, any new technology or any new thing which has been introduced in the medical field or a dental field needs some surgical skill. Once you know about this implant and you get trained with this new concept, then it becomes very easy for everybody to use this technology. But yes, initially it has its own learning curve to understand what is happening with this implant, and you have to learn more about this technology. Extensive mucopharyngeal flap reflection. Definitely, when we consider with the conventional implant or any other implant, except the zygoma implants, we need to have a extensive mucopharyngeal flap reflection up to the zygomatic buttresses and the anterior canine buttresses for the fixation of our article plates. That is one of the biggest disadvantage in the this. But extensive surgery, I can say it's not a disadvantage. Little complex and regular endosseous implant, but simple compared to advanced procedures like bone grafting and any other zygoma implant or things. We don't require that skill, that kind of a skill when we compare with the zygomatic implants. But definitely, we can get trained and we can do this subspecial implant. In the end, I would like to suggest that subspecial implant has a new designs as well as the dimension of a three-dimensional radiographic system has made this technology of a subspecial implant easy, and it has changes the entire concept of a subspecial implant. Despite this necessary, despite of this technologies and other things, we need more studies to be done on this subspecial implant and accept this technology as a alternative treatment modality for those patients who doesn't have so much of bone or severely resorbed jaws, and we can finally do this kind of dental rehabilitation for those patients, definitely. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I will open this session for question and answer.
Thank you. It's now time for us to begin with the question and answer session. We have the first question. Okay, Doctor has already answered to that question. We move to the next question. A question from Dr. Alka. If it's complex, then endosseous implant, why would we choose the same, and how will we explain it to the patient?
Alka, that is a good question. Definitely, it is not that complex with that of the endosseous implant. The reason behind that, in endosseous implant, you have to be very conscious about the angulation and three-dimensional positioning of implant. Okay, and second thing, you have to be very careful about your important anatomical structures in that area, whichever area we are operating. But with this implants, I'm not saying that this is an alternative for endosseous implants, but definitely when you can do an endosseous implant, please go ahead and do the endosseous implant. Don't wait for the subspecial implant and convince the patient for these things. Okay, the first thing, if this is an option only for those patients or a hopeless patient where there is a severe bone resorption, you can't do endosseous implants. Okay, the second thing, and how you can convince your patient, because you see, if you don't have any other option for your patient, you have to tell that this is the only option which is left. Of course, the patient, if they have to go for zygoma implant, again the same complication, same thing, everything is there. But it is extensive surgery, you have to be very skilled, and once it's failed, your entire thing is gone. But with subspecial implant, what I can see and what we have experienced is that the failure is very less, the first thing, and it has got a multiple cortical fixation screws, which will be long-term stability for this subspecial implant. The second thing, even if one of screws loosens, we have an emergency profile holes for the fixation of the subspecial implant. That is again the advanced thing for the subspecial implant. Initially, we don't have emergency screws, but yes, in recent subspecial implants, we are keeping some additional screw holes left, so that if at all, if any screw fails or it get infected, we remove that screw and we drill a new hole in a new place with an emergency fixation cortically fixation screws. This is one. The second thing is that Even in the any other options and endosteal implants in a full mouth rehabilitation, if you have lost one or two implants, your entire process is gone. You have to do some new process. But with uh, this implant, you don't have to worry about the uh, processes. It will be in the same position because your entire dimension of the shape of your implant is not going to change. So that's a beauty. And you have to convince, if you don't have any other option, then definitely you have to convince your patient. That's how we do it in our practice. And we get a more patients referred to us for the these kind of cases where the patient has already said that we don't have any other options. You can speak to so and so doctor, they are doing this. If you convince, you go ahead. So for me, till date, convincing to the patient is not a big deal, because once they have traveled or meet a lot of dentists, once they say that there's no other options, you have to go ahead and do these kind of options, then it is easy for me to convince them.
Thank you, Doctor. Participants, we are open to the Q&A session still yet. If you have
Which
any
lab
questions.
will provide you support for this planning? Yes, of course, there are certain Indian companies also who are doing it. You can contact Ruben or me. We'll help you out with this. There are one company in India, and even there are multiple companies across the countries. I'm working with a company called Bonizi, Portuguese, who is the best, and they are doing a lot of innovative technologies, and they are putting a lot of effort to R&D with suppressed implant, and not only the suppressed implant, but a lot of other maxillofacial implants. So there are a lot of companies even in India who are doing it. So we can help you out with the details once you contact us.
Thank you, sir. We have the next question from Dr. Sachin Balla, who's asking, in All-in 6 and All-on 4, what should be practiced more frequently? Means, which has a better outcome in near future in case of full mouth rehabilitations?
I prefer All-on 6 because All-on 4, the posterior AP, what do you say, the dimension or a spread is less, and we don't have, we have some sort of a cantilever effect in the All-on 4 concept. So better for maxilla, if you have a opportunity, go ahead and do the All-on 6. That is more stable and more, what do you say, that the predictable outcome. But in mandible, again, we can do All-on 4, and if at all, if you have a chance, you can put up 2 small implants in the posterior region for the to convert this All-on 4 into All-on 6. I prefer, if I have a bone or something like that, I can do go ahead and do 6 implants. That is better. If you don't have any option, then you can go ahead and do the All-on 4. The results are more predictable and more good with the All-on 6 kind of implants.
Thank you, doctor. I think, okay, we have another question. A question from Dr. Princey. So what if the patient is medically compromised? Would this still be successful in them?
Yeah, because these, see, in all other implant system, definitely we don't have, we need to have a patient compliance for that. Suppose if we are going for an, see, first thing, if you can do a regular implants, go ahead and do it. Check for the patient compliance and a maintenance. That's the most important thing. Any dental implants needed patient compliance in terms of maintaining hygiene and the maintenance of the implant part. Okay, so that is most important. Now coming to your patient who is having a mentally for mentally retarded, I think so, medically compromised. Okay, no. See, sorry, I took it with a different way. This, medically compromised. Yes, there is no. It is much better than the conventional endosseous implant, because in conventional implant, suppose if it is endosseous implant with diabetes mellitus or any other what do you say, that the healing problem or osteoporotic one, definitely all those implant has to osseointegrate. But in this implant, we can go ahead and fix it in a zygomatic buttresses, that is lateral fixation. So you have a good vertical as well as the horizontal fixation of these implants. So we get a good result for the medically compromised patients.
Thank you, doctor. We move to the next question. Question from Dr. Maria Motiwala. So why don't doctors do subperiosteal implants instead of endosteal implants? Just, is it because the patients don't agree?
See, it's not that just patient doesn't agree. The problem is when you have a good, the answer is when you have a good amount of bone, why you want to go for superficial implant? It is little more difficult compared to that of the regular implants. So it is better to go ahead and do this endosteal implants. But if you don't have options, when you don't have enough bone or sufficient bone to go ahead and do the endosteal implant, then definitely you go ahead and do the superficial implant.
Thank you, sir. Before we move to the next question, we have a participant, Dr. Vipin Das, who's asking if you can provide your contact number because he wants to get in touch with you regarding a lab. So can you please tell us your contact number?
You can take down, I can say it here directly.
Please, sir, I am noting it down.
983381.
All right.
9669.
Dr. Vipin Das, I hope you've got the contact number. We move to the next question. What is the failure rate of subperiosteal implants?
Till date, I have done 9 cases, partially as well as the full. My implants are still in the mouth with little bit here and there problems like what do you say, soft tissue problems, which is my initial implants. So which we have been taken care with the local flaps, and I don't see any kind of problems till date. It's like more than 3 to 5 years now. So I have not seen any kind of a failure in that where we have removed the entire implant and thrown away. No, we have not. But yes, skill is an important thing. We need to be trained in that for doing these patients and these implants for the patient. So that is one important thing. And it's a very small amount of cases what we have done to say it is 100% successful, because 7 to 8 cases and 3 to 5 years, it's not a good what do you say, that evidence that we can say that it is 100% success. But yes, till date all my implants are working, and even the companies with which we are getting into these implants, they have a lot of international people who are doing these cases. Till date we didn't see any kind of a failure. Yes, of course, little bit here and there are there, and we are doing a lot of R&D to rectify those small problems which are coming and which are facing in the day-to-day practice with the superficial implant.
Thank you, doctor. I think with that, we come to the end of your session. Once again, on behalf of Team Dentist Channel.online, I would like to thank you.
There's one more question, Ruben, just one minute. If an implant fails, then how to remove it? Simple, unscrew it and pull it out, it will come out. See, the most important thing is that if an implant fails, see, usually these implants fail, see, they have a lot of osseointegration part. The surface is treated already, so it has got a osseointegration part. Okay, so even if the screw, the fixating screws has come out or the loosens, it will not fail. It will still work nicely. Okay, because it has got an endosteal component, which is again osseointegrated. The surface cortical plate, which is fixing. Then again they have a surface treated. They will have some tendency to get osseointegrated. And lastly, the fixation screws. There are 3 to 4 components which are playing important role in the stability and the stability of this implant. So, in sense, if it has to fail, it has to fail in all cells. Like screw has to loosen, then the surface should not get integrated. There should be some sort of an infection in the cortical plates, the fixation plates, as well as the endosteal part, where that area also has to be resolved, or there should not be any kind of an osseointegration. Then this is the total failure of the implant. You have to remove all the screws. It will come out easily once you raise the flap and take it out. Again, what we have seen, that what I can feel is that even if it fails, you have to take that implant, keep it, send it to the company. They will treat that implant, resend it back, get a new CPC. Then if you have a same anatomical change things in the face or the jaw, you can refix the same implant after 3 to 5 months. What I feel. Yet we are not done those type of refixation of the same implant, but I feel we can go ahead and do the same implant refixation once we get a treatment of the same implant.
Thank you, sir. Friends, any more questions? Okay, we have a question, sir. Question from Dr. Madan Mohan. I need more information on fabrication of this implant system.
you can in what terms, like in fabrication? See, in terms of a labs, we are going to tell, if you can call me, I can help you out with the same. If you want to know about the designing and the concept of designing and how to go about it, you have to get trained for that in a software company or as companies who are doing it, like Materialize and Exocad. You have to get trained yourself in those softwares for the fabrication or the designing part. Fabrication, there are a lot of companies who are doing it for, if you can design it.
Okay, adding to that question, doctor, the same question, it says lab portion. So the question was with regards to lab.
Lab portion, Dr. Madan, the lab portion, if you're talking about the fabrication of an implant, yes, there are a lot of labs which are doing it. It's not the lab, it is 3D printing companies who are doing it. It's not a regular dental lab who can fabricate these implants, because there are a lot of technicalities in the fabrication of customized implant which is going inside the body. For example, if you are doing titanium bar for the endosseous implant, which is external, that is like it's not going inside the bone or the subperiosteum, below the mucosa, that is the holding part for the prosthesis, that can be fabricated in the regular labs. But there are a lot of regulation and guidelines for the fabrication of maxillofacial implants, that is superficial implant or any DMJ implant. There are a lot of regulations from the regulatory authorities of India as well as the international guidelines. So not a regular 3D printing companies or dental labs will fabricate these kind of implants for you, because there are certain certifications needed for the lab to go ahead and do this kind of a printing. First thing, material, definitely it's a pure titanium medical grade, and the company who are using a dedicated 3D printing machine for the dental that medical grade prosthesis, those company only are authorized to fabricate this kind of implants, not a regular general any industrial grade 3D printing companies will fabricate. They will have a lot of issues with the fabrication in terms of medical acceptance in the body.